Welcome back to another episode of Talking Shirt. Today I'm joined by the one and only TCD, Luke. Mate, I love your Twitter. I love everything you talk about. I love every single point of culture reference and pop culture. What is on your mind today?
Thank you for having us on. First off, hello to you. On my mind today is pretty much, I'm kind of obsessing over the World Cup, and mainly for some reason 2010 and 2014 at the minute. So today I've kind of been watching loads of World Cup stuff and looking at eBay for World Cup merch and collectibles and all that stuff. And apart from that, kind of working, creating, looking for inspiration, watching stuff, other creators like yourself, and kind of interacting. Really, that's kind of what's on my radar this week.
It's pretty funny because you got me obsessed with World Cup merch, and I've got the 94 USA Cup here. It's funny, I bought that on eBay, and then I came home and my wife looked at it. She's like, why are you drinking from a cup that's probably older than us? I'm born 91, so I'm definitely older than that cup. But she goes, some old person was drinking for that. So have you bought a mug or a coffee or even like a beer cup? Have you bought anything and drank out of it?
Yeah, so I've got a couple of
But you cleaned it, yeah?
Glasses. Yeah, washed it first. But I got quite a range of stuff. So we're talking France 98 pint glasses, Italia 90 little glasses. I don't drink out the Italia 90 ones though; they're too cool. I just kind of have them sitting by. But then I've got a few glasses, Coca-Cola World Cup glasses, Budweiser World Cup glasses that are still in the box, so I've not even touched them.
That's special.
So they're just sitting around kind of thing, and it's kind of a whole collection really. And I've actually got a thing coming right now that I didn't want to do on TCD, so I'm doing it on my own personal stuff, which is going to be like showcasing the collectible stuff I've actually got.
Yeah.
Which is a little series coming up, just to share. I've got a passion for it, and it's not suitable for TCD, so I thought, why not do it on my own kind of personal channels, really?
Oh, look, when it comes to collecting, like kits are really important because they are art forms. I collect a lot of little pins for my denim jacket, so I like to do that. And
that's cool.
I've even got a Spider-Man collection, but when it comes to collecting, I think the obsession with having little items is that throwback to a memory. Do you have a sort of special connection with the World Cup because it gives you sort of a euphoric feeling compared to like club football? Or do you think the merch that was created in the 90s and even 2010s for World Cups have been a lot more special?
So I think, so I was born 97, so really the World Cups are kind of like back then, 86, Italia 90, France 98. I don't really have a kind of memory about because I wasn't alive for them. So looking back, it's like a admiration looking back in terms of how good and how I think I would have enjoyed football back then, and kind of the situation, especially with the 86 World Cup, Maradona being about, and that being such a good World Cup for him, and when they go on to win it, it's such a good story. But in terms of the collectible stuff, I think World Cups in the past have seen a lot of cooler stuff in terms of stuff you can buy, like the Italia 90 glasses, and all that sort of collectible stuff. I think they're a lot cooler than nowadays. I think quite a lot of stuff that are in that recent World Cups is mainly like corporate kind of reproduced stuff.
It is.
It has that kind of plasticky feeling, whereas back then I think it was more hard produced, top quality.
What was
stuff.
The last World Cup you reckon fell off? Was it the Germany World Cup?
I think it's started probably. I don't know, because I really like the 2010 World Cup, and that one gets frowned upon quite a lot. I think that's mainly the most recent World Cups in terms of 2010, 2006 at a push, and 2014. They are kind of World Cups that I actually remember watching and growing up with. So that's why I'm kind of obsessed with them, is because I've got that feeling of going to school and rushing home to watch them and watching them with my mates, and then going out and playing football myself. So that's why they kind of hold a special place in my heart, them kind of World Cups. In terms of like the collectibles and stuff, I think it did drop off from like around Germany 2006, 2010 probably was the last one where we're seeing some cool stuff. And then 2014, 2018, I think it became a bit more kind of commercial. I know the World Cup's always been commercial, but in terms of the way the producing stuff, the releasing stuff, I think it's a lot more mass-produced commercial stuff, and the quality kind of dips on them. But yeah, like I said, I'm kind of a fan of any World Cup stuff. The one I've actually the most about for some strange reason is actually USA in '94, and I don't actually know why that is. Yes, they've probably got some cool stuff, and they definitely got some cool stuff like in case of shirts and jackets and kind of clothing wear and all that stuff, because I've seen it, and they've got some cool stuff there, but I've really lacked actually like looking into that sort of stuff and actually buying some stuff from them. So maybe that's going to be on my maybe that'll be on my next radar to actually kind of investigate that.
I think for me, the France and the US World Cup are my favorite, just because they just idolized sort of the mascot. I think the US one with the dog, I love, and even just the colors. I think the US, look, as shit as a country the US is, I think they're really smart on the way they popularize like brands. And when football was trying to grow there, it was like this soccer type of thing, And I sound the most American then. What's that guy? That's that TV series, Ted Lasso, that everyone's watching at the moment. But honestly, I think something about the US World Cup that got me obsessed with it is the way they used color in their branding. Like that jacket you mentioned, even Ellis Platten from Away Days has. It's that big puffer jacket. And I think it was I think it was that era of 90s when we were just not sure where we stand with clothing, and we were just all over the shop. And it's funny, you say how manufacturers and everything after the 90s, early 2000s became a bit over-branded and stuff. I think you see that in jerseys, mainly when like United, when they went from Umbro to Nike. So I think it's just something as humanity, we just changed.
I think there's a lot of aspects in terms of, like you said, the fashion side of things. There's a lot of influence from that, the era and the other subcultures. So like you said, the big bomber jacket, that's the World Cup's looked at that, and that's probably very 90s sting. And that maybe that's what kind of makes it a bit cooler as well, is that it's taking that influence from them other cultures.
Yeah. And look, I think when it comes to football and your influence on it, a lot of people can say that you have inspired us and them into being football, basically maniacs and, crazed people in anything. Because, look, you've brought up a lot of topics on your website, and I have to say thank you for that, because there's so much that I didn't know before. So that's a massive shout out to you and the work that you're doing at TCD. So for everyone listening now, so this will be on Spotify and on YouTube. Please explain what you're wearing, and then let's talk about TCD.
Yeah, so this shirt is probably the rarest in my collection. It's not the biggest collection, but it is growing. And this is probably the rarest one I've got, and it's a Boca Juniors one from '98, and it's actually a cup special. So it was a tournament called Copa Mercosur, and it was basically a tournament held in '98. In 90. It was 98 and 2000, definitely. I can't remember the third year. It was only held for 3 years. In 98, it's basically South American teams. So in 98, it was teams from Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, and Chile.
Nice.
And Boca Juniors played in that, and they had a special range of kits for it. They got knocked out in the quarterfinals. It goes group stages, then into the quarters, and they got knocked out by Palmeiras on aggregate over the 2 legs. And they released shirts for it. This was the home kit, and they released a yellow version. And I think they released a white version, but I'm not sure how legit the white version is. But I've definitely seen it about. But yeah, it's got the Kielmes sponsor on as well. So that's definitely an influence on me to buy this one as well, because I love that sponsor. And it pretty much, I was after a Boca shirt for a long time. And I never actually found one that I wanted to take the plunge on for sale, because I always wanted the classic ones, and they're always a lot of the money. And then this one popped up, and I'd never seen it before, and I just instantly fell in love and bought it straight away then, and it's kind of added to the rarest one in my collection now.
Yeah, Boca Junior kits are really hard to get, and the recent situation, which we'll talk about after this topic, is a big reason why the kits have gone up. But look, for me, I had a Boca kit, the centenary one. I sold it straight away because it's not as special as the one you got. But that kit you got on, it does remind me of that 90s MLS era where they had the hoops around the kit. I think Tampa Bay Mutiny had that, and a few of the other ones. Is that the same generation of Nike kits?
Yeah, I think so, because the Tampa Bay Mutiny one, definitely has these little stripes running around.
Yeah.
But there's also, I've got a PSV training shirt, which is essentially the same material, same design, red, black, and white. But this Nike Tick's it's a big central one.
Oh, you have to show me.
The PSV badge is on the side. So I picked that up from Classic Football Shirts in Manchester, and it's pretty much the same kit, but a training version. Same material, just different colours. So I think it's definitely something about that era where they started making these kits in this material.
That's why I'm obsessed with PSV, because they have some of the best Nike stuff. I'm really sad that they've left Nike in the time. But you know what? Have you noticed that PSV have also lost their Phillips sponsor now?
Yeah, they changed it a few years back, didn't they?
Yeah, they got a new sponsor. I think the township owns it now. So,
Yeah.
look, I think when it comes to football, things always change, but you're always on top of that with your topics. How did you start TCD, the culture division, and basically, what got you into football? What was your first memory of football?
So I'll start with how I got into football. Essentially, I've been in football my kind of whole life. I know it's cliche. I was brought up on it, supporting Newcastle United with my dad and my granddad supporting them as well. And ever since, I think I got my first football when I was about 3, and my first kit when I was 5. So ever since then, I was just kicking a ball around and watching Newcastle with my dad and stuff. So ever since then, it stemmed from that. And loved it throughout school, but it was more focused on like playing it and stuff. And then I got into high school and wanted to actually start being a journalist and reporting, being a sports journalist. And I started writing at about age 14 and doing like podcasts and stuff. But yeah, I've loved football ever since. And for some reason, like was mentioned, the World Cup clicked with me. Barcelona and the Guardiola era clicked with me as well, and I fell in love with them. And that's how I kind of got into football. It's kind of been a from birth kind of thing, being brought up on it. And TCD started off the back of wanting to be a journalist. So I was always blogging away and writing and weird stuff as a younger. And as I grew older, I kind of wanted to go away from the journalistic sort of stuff and into a more creative kind of form. I became quite less interested in tactics and statistics and stuff like that, and more into how fans act and fashion influences on football. And that's where Culture Division came from. I started as a personal blog on a WordPress site, just writing about stuff I found cool. Essentially, I changed it from being like luketaylor.wordpress.com to the Culture Division.wordpress.com, and just started writing about like stuff I found cool. And then eventually it came to a point where I was like, I want to actually make something of this. But being in university, I kind of didn't have the time or the money to kind of launch it. But in university, I had a placement where I started in a wage. And that was when I decided to take the dive on it and start actually going for it properly. And that's the kind of site you see today is the one it was about just over a year ago now. No, just under 2 years, sorry. Where I actually wanted to proper launch it, build a site, like get people on the team contributing and stuff, which we've got a good network of writers and creators as well, which I'm forever grateful for, because this is funded out of my pocket, so they're just contributing.
Passion project, yeah,
it's a passion project. It's funded out of my pocket. It's a passion project, and people have started believing to like buy in that and wanted to help out, which is something I'm really grateful for, and they're forever in my debt for doing that. And that's where it's come from today. And I've got more and more plans for it going forward. Actually trying to make it into something a bit bigger and with a bit more strategic ways, and diving into a few more areas in terms of creating our own t-shirts, podcasts, videos. Got so many ideas for it, and there's a lot of scope to actually do these ideas with the kind of network we've got. And I just need to actually start planning it and kind of timing it out, and start actually putting some groundwork in to actually get these ideas going in 2021, because 2020 was obviously a rough year. I try to do as best I could, finishing university, finding jobs, and also balancing TCD. But 2021 I think is where we start to kick on with it now and start actually doing some of these ideas that I've wanted to do for years.
Well, there's no absolute rush or even pressure on you, because when it comes to projects like this, they are not only passion, but they are, ways for you to do what you love. When I got out of high school, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with photography. So I started my own music blog, and I was really a Tumblr kid back in the day. So I loved music. Like, I am born in Australia, but I'm heavily influenced by Manchester, London. And when it comes to music, I listen to almost every single 2010 band, like Foals, Two Door Cinema Club, Jungle, the what do you call it, Vaccines, Maccabees, the list can go on. And I started a music blog called Adam Not Eve. I went to every festival, every gig. I toured with bands, and that got me into a situation where I started photography. And without that, I wouldn't have got into Melbourne City and where I am now. So it may not look to you like you've done much in like a year or two, but mate, honestly, like the TCD is growing really healthy. So just keep at it. You never know in a couple of years, I'm not sure familiar with the UK scene, but yeah, look, Soccer AM, any of those situations, you could build your own version and still grow it, because the community is growing. And
Yeah,
I
it
think there's
is
a lot of
definitely.
backers out there because, yeah, look, I'm pretty happy with our community. I feel like everyone supports each other, which is the best.
Yeah.
But look, I think when you talk about football and how you grow up, one question I always ask my UK friends, do you have a friend in the UK that does not like football?
Um,
And why? Why? Because I've met so many people that have told me that they grew up with friends that do not care about football. And I'm here in Australia crying my heart out because I would love to be walking the streets of London or Manchester or even middle of nowhere like Portsmouth.
I'm not actually quite sure if I do have one that really doesn't like football. I think all my mates actually take an interest in it in some way. I lived with a
Yeah.
guy who played rugby. He plays rugby league
Yeah.
professionally,
Rugby and
but
cricket.
he was a Derby County fan, so he still had the interest in football.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if anyone actually doesn't. I
It's
don't think I
hard.
don't. It's hard to think. I know as soon as I get off this call now,
Yeah,
I'd
you
see a
probably know.
message I'd see a message from someone. I'll be like, oh yeah, he doesn't like
Yeah,
football.
him.
That's probably one I should have brought up.
Well, funny story. When I landed in London, 2019 for the first time with my wife, and I was so happy. I was like to my wife, I'm like, Chantel, I'm in the land of football. Like, I'm gonna go and touch. Like, I'm a United fan. I was like, I'm gonna even go touch Emirates Stadium, or even like we went to QPR next to Westfield London, and
Yeah.
I made my wife walk 10 minutes just to go there and touch the building. It was closed, yeah, but I was like,
Yeah.
finally, I'm in the land of football. But when I landed, I went up to one of the people that was like greeting us, and I said, "Oh my god, like, do you support someone?" And he's like, "I fucking hate football." And
Oh,
I was like, "Are you serious? You broke my heart." I spent 42 hours flying here, and you're telling me that.
oh God.
What would you do without football? Like, I think football is something that keeps us, wakes us up. Like, for example, it's 6 o'clock here, and after our chat, I'm watching the Manchester Derby in the cup. But like, tell me now, right now, what would you do without football?
I genuinely don't think I've actually got an answer to that question.
So see how
Football's kind of
important
like,
football is?
yeah, football kind of all I know, and it has been all my life.
Yeah.
Playing it, watching it, talking about it, writing about it, creating about it. So to actually think about not having football there is kind of a bit of a like strange.
Yeah.
It would be a strange situation to be quite honest
It's
with you.
like
Thinking
life
about
without
it.
music.
Yeah, exactly. It would definitely be a massive hole in my life if I didn't have it there. It fulfills so much in terms of mentally, emotionally, and physically,
Yeah.
which I've kind of learned, especially being in lockdown, not being able to play. It's kind of definitely helped with all them sort
Yeah.
of areas. But yeah, it's really admirable. Like you getting up at 6 a.m. now to do this chat. It's what 7:30 at night here. You're watching the Manchester Derby after this. Like that's kind of something that speaks volumes about football for me. Is that it's kind of that universal, like
Mm.
global kind of thing where everyone loves it, and especially Australians get up to watch a Premier League at whatever o'clock in the morning.
Oh, the
Because I've
Manchester
always,
versus Liverpool game is at 3 a.m.
oh yeah, so it's like just the thing. Like people will get up and watch it because they just love the game, and that's I kind of preach it on my Twitter quite a lot, and we do it for Culture Division. It's like one world, one game, and
100%.
like I learned that from Ellie Benjamin on Copper 90. He was the first person I ever heard say that phrase.
Mm. Good Aussie
Um,
bloke.
yeah, and he used it on loads of different shows, and it just stuck with me ever since then. That was back in when he did his audition tape, and that stuck with me ever since. It's kind of became like an ethos of why I love the game. It's kind of a phrase of why I love the game, essentially.
Yeah. Well, that's a good segue for me because I feel like TCD and your mission and everything you're doing is a good influence on people that don't know much about football. So, look, whatever you write, people are going to be inspired. Now,
Thank you
with
very
the
much for that.
TCD, yeah, look, that's why I wanted to explain that feeling of not having football. And then someone comes to your page and reads it because there's so much information on there about football. And I think when it comes to the culture of football, it's growing every day.
Yeah,
Only 5 years ago, we didn't see the collaborations like we see now with Branded and Roma or Human Race and Adidas, Baller and Puma. But like it's growing, and I was going to ask you: are you excited to see what football is doing, or are you scared to see the over sort of popularization with commercials and companies that they're doing now with football brands?
I'm very excited, but also it is a bit kind of on a fine line.
Yeah,
So I've said this before. I've been focusing on brands within the culture for quite a long time, like smaller creatives. And what they're doing is something that I think deserves to be on, like, be noticed by big clubs and big brands within football. And it is starting to kind of become a thing more, where we're seeing brands get noticed with clubs, as in like Neville Cracker starting to work with big brands like Umbro and clubs. Gorilla FC worked with Marseille, and that sort of thing. We're seeing more and more.
We are Acid did the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah,
with Red Star.
That's a really, really, them two shirts are really, really, really nice. And I just think it is really good to see that sort of thing growing, and definitely is good to see the culture booming and more people getting involved. But then there is a fine line where I've kind of said before is like the reasoning behind getting involved, which I think Virgil Abloh speaks kind of his involvement in the 2018 World Cup speaks like volumes of that fine line. Is essentially he's came in for the hype and to kind of create stuff that's hyped and then dashed out of football straight away. And he made loads of money from it, and that's kind of like the wrong thing. Because at the time I was thinking Nike should be not looking at Virgil Abloh because they're only going with him because of his name and reputation.
Yeah.
They should be going with people who actually care about the kind of culture and care about the scene, which is people within it and who have been grinding away for ages. And that's what I kind of said.
I say that to everyone every fucking day.
That's what I kind of said in 2018. I did a piece on it, and I said, look, Virgil Abloh came in because of his hype, and he's going to leave because of his hype, and he's going to get the hype from people for some strange reason. The stuff he created wasn't even good, and I preached it. That I said, and I stand by it, is that Nike, Adidas, everyone should be looking to more people that have been grinding within the culture for years, like these brands, like these creators, like yourself, like everyone, like who has been doing it for years, who has that passion and actually the knowledge of the industry. Like Virgil Abloh definitely doesn't have the knowledge. He might have the kind of design knowledge, but he doesn't have the knowledge of the football culture. I think it's quite a unique thing, and it's quite a difficult one to understand and get right at times in terms of targeting.
Virgil is, he's a bit of he comes and destroys. Well, is he the one that designed the Pop Smoke album that was so embarrassing?
Yeah, so he designed that and he had to change it. He's also the one that said he'd donate $50 to the Black Lives Matter movement, and that kicked off as well. But yeah, he designed the Pop Smoke album and he got forced to change it because it was that bad. But his Russia 2018 World Cup stuff was really bad. The checkerboard shirt, the Nike Mercurials. He basically took the Nike Mercurials that had been released a month before the tournament and added a few blue spots on it and released it for an extra $100. And it's like he's made loads of money from it. Nike's made loads of money. They both got loads of hype from it. So from a business point of view, it's actually worked. But I was just a bit sad to see people grinding away in the culture, selling like a couple T-shirts a month, making like as like little living as they deserve more than that. And then Virgil comes in and just makes.
Well, that's a big question then, because the football fans out there then also are the culprits, because they'll go and spend $180 on a brand new Nike shirt with the vape edition. But then when it comes to like smaller brands, like you said, Nova Crack or even Park, they won't spend $140 on something that's, one, ethically made, and two, like supporting a brand and a community. So do you think as football, not creators, but football community, we're a bit of a culprit as well for not actually supporting our smaller brands?
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely a factor of that. I think it's a factor in all creative industries, is the fact that people should be supporting small creators, because without small creators, then there's no creative scene essentially. Of course. So I definitely think there is an aspect of that, and I think 2020 would have taught a lot of lessons in order to actually support local creators, and I think there's more focus on that sort of thing from 2020 because of the financial struggles and that aspect sort of thing of the pressure from 2020. So supporting local, like young, smaller creators is definitely an important thing for football to do, as well as other creative industries. And I think we'll see more and more of it as more brands start releasing cool stuff and collaborating more and that sort of thing. I definitely think that's definitely improving, but I think it still needs to kick on a bit more. And I think people are spending money on shirts because it's the club they love, maybe. So they'd rather spend it on something they're passionate about in terms of the football team they're supporting rather than a local creator. Or it's just like they're a kit collector, do you know what I mean? And kit collectors want to buy kits and not like a T-shirt, for example.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of finding the balance. But I think it's definitely important to support these brands within the culture, because without them, there wouldn't be kind of the scene it is now, and it wouldn't continue growing.
No, I agree. It's actually scary to think about 2020, I did get obsessed more with that because in lockdown here, we were a 6-month lockdown here last year, and we basically just woke up, weren't allowed to leave for 5 kilometers from our house. And I was obsessed with the life online because we can live a life online in a way that we can inspire each other, do these sort of episodes, podcasts, talk about merch, design merch. And yeah, for me, like I found new aspects of football that I never knew of. So I kind of am really grateful for that. I did a lot of research, and really what got me obsessed is the obsession of people they in the football scene that have this hate for designers or just hate for collaborations. That human race design, the human race piece that came out. What was your take on that? Do you think that someone like Virgil, and now we think about Pharrell with his human race design, do you think that was a hit and miss, or do you think that's a good step in football?
So I think with the Virgil one, I think it was definitely a miss, but with the Pharrell one, I think it's a hit, and I'll explain why. First off, the kits I think were like nice, but I think there's a lot of stuff in the scene in kit collections now where there's a lot of retro influence, and it's kind of getting to a point where when does that stop? And essentially what they've done is they've remixed classic kits, which is going to sell. But the reason Pharrell's kind of the human race collection is kind of a hit in my eyes is because they actually used and talked to creators within the culture to actually produce them kits. So they worked with a brand called Romance FC, who have been killing it for a long time in the culture, especially within focus on women's football. And they're really cool. And the fact that Adidas and Pharrell Williams actually discussed this with creators that actually have been in the game for quite a long time is something that is definitely a hit. And that's something that I would like to see more, is these designers coming in and actually taking notice of what's already here. And taking and listening to what people that have been here and grinding it out for years, which is what something Virgil kind of didn't do. He kind of just did his Off-White. He just made his Off-White stuff into football merch, and that's kind of why he went wrong. If he came in and started talking to creators that were grinding away and collaborated with them like Pharrell and Adidas did with the Human Race release, then it probably would have been seen in a better light, in my eyes anyway. And that's why I think Pharrell's was a kind of a bigger hit, because of that collaboration and the communication between him and some brands that have been working away.
Well, I learned this thing on TikTok. Sorry to everyone. I am 30 years old and I still use TikTok because there's a lot of good memes and lols on there. But I learned the thing yesterday that there's this 30-year, I forgot the name of it. I'm pretty sure people listening can Google it after. So the people that are creating movies now were kids in the 80s. So for example, a lot of the movies we see are inspired by the 80s. And then that's a 30-year gap. So I feel like now with football jerseys, not 80s, like late 80s, early 90s. So I see that with football kits. I feel like we're getting inspired by the early 90s now. And then in the later stages of the 2020s, I feel like we're going to start seeing renditions of the early 2000s. And then I feel like that 30-year gap just keeps going until, like you saw it with Back to the Future. It had a lot of 50s in there. So when that movie came out, that 30-year gap went to the 50s. And I think even Grease Lightning, when they came out, you see that 30-year gap with the 50s. So I think that's happening with kits and their redesigns. There was a really bad period, I think, in the early 90s for like brands like Nike when they went to United, because it just went to absolute shit after Umbro. And it was just so plain, because you can see that in the FIFA covers when Ronaldo was on it with Ronaldinho, with Rooney. And I wasn't a huge fan of the Vodafone era, apart from that one kit they did with Umbro, and then they went to Nike. But do you think that we're going to see now manufacturers do something like they did with this one here, the Nigeria one, where they start going to be a bit more bespoke designs away from the 90s inspired kits?
So like you said, I totally agree with that, what you've said. And I've talked about it before in terms of the 90s influences, just to where does the 90s influence kind of stop. And we're starting to see now, like the shirt you're holding, the Korea shirt, the Nigeria shirts, the kind of designs, and we've seen it more this season, especially, is they are moving away from that influence and they're using more bespoke designs. Nike came out and said when they released the Nigeria Olympic kit, the 2021, which I think personally is better than the 2018 Nigeria kit.
Agreed.
They revealed that they were kind of edging away from templates and that sort of thing, and giving teams now a set of kind of aspects and features for the kit to choose from and design. which is good to see, because then it's stepping into making kits, like iconic kits that are from the time now. So I think personally, kit designs for quite a while have focused on past icons, and we're looking at sort of kits from the past that have been in iconic moments. One comes to my mind is sometimes you see like the Holland 88 kit influenced on other kits, and you see that kind of influence from other iconic kits. Mm-hmm. And my question is why do we need to take them kits and remaster them essentially into new kits for today when we could just start creating our own iconic kits? Which is,
of course,
that's like one of the questions I had, is when can we shift from retro influence and actually start making our own icons? And I think that's what we've kind of started doing with the Nigeria kits, that South Korea kit, and more kits on a wider basis. We've seen a lot of kits this year, third kits, go a bit more crazy with it. And I think that's how we're going to start creating our own icons from this time period that people will look back on in the future and go, that's a really nice kit from 2019. That's a really nice kit from 2020. And I think that's where we're kind of
grandchildren
heading. Yeah. We'll look back and say I was there when that was released and stuff like that. And I think it's now coming, it's turning the corner where we're seeing more brands create these bespoke kits that are going to become icons themselves rather than influenced by an icon.
Yeah. It's crazy to think, like, some of these kits we buy, like some of them I wasn't even born. Like I'm a 91 child, and some of the kits I have, I'm like, damn, that was created before I was even thought about. And it's crazy to think that they're sitting on my shelf and rack here. I think look, there was a big gap in the early 2000s where manufacturers were just making kits because it was just part and parcel of their job in collaboration with the club. When Umbro was around, they did some amazing kits for a lot of the clubs they had. But I think it's growing. And like you said, a lot of the bespoke designs are up to people like yourself as well, the creative and the culture-driven, people out there. So I'd love to see a lot more from TCD. Maybe there's going to be a design from your end for a future club in the future. I'd love to see that.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Where's 2021 looking for TCD and we'll move into the next subject?
What's 2021 looking for the culture division?
Yeah. So what else are you planning? Like, I know you said podcast before.
So we're looking to do kind of t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, sort of throughout the year. So we're working on designs and stuff now to kind of release throughout the year. I definitely want to do a podcast, but not kind of the typical podcast where it's kind of a weekly podcast talking about the ongoings in football. I want to be a bit more niche and a bit more, have a different structure to it. So I'm kind of still padding out that idea of which direction we can go in with the podcast, but it's definitely coming. And I want to do more collaborations with some brands on whether it be content pieces, maybe photo shoots, videos, films, or written articles, or kind of social projects. And even as far as going into kind of more collaborations with fashion pieces. So collaborating with people in the culture on some clothing releases, whether it be us helping design the clothing and it becoming a TCD time like crossover with someone on the clothing piece, or us working with them on the kind of cultural and creative direction.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So we dropped our creative kind of branch, our creative arm of the brand essentially, which is acting as our portfolio for now, showcasing our creative work in terms of photography, design, and video. So that's on like a micro site, and it's kind of a different wing of the brand, which is something I want to actually make happen. Is while we're here to elevate the culture and support people within it and showcase different stories from around the world, we also want to create ourselves and showcase that we are creatives ourselves rather than just elevating people. So it's kind of that crossover is where I'm taking it. To collaborate with people. And that's kind of what we've got planned, just to kick on with our content, our website content, our social content, but also start delving into more collaborations, fashion, podcasts. Also want to start doing videos as well. We've got a really, really sick guy who works with Joker Kett, he's called. He does our IGTV channel,
nice.
The Brunch. And we really want to, me and him really discuss getting more video content out there on building the YouTube, building our IGTV channel. And that's kind of what our focus is for 2021, is to start actually padding out these ideas and kicking on essentially.
Honestly, there's nothing stopping you. And that's the best thing about the generation we live in. Like I say this to anyone, and I get a lot of messages because as a photographer, a lot of kids message me like, how did you get into sports photography? How do you work for Melbourne City, which is the sister club for Man City? And it's like they idolize this idea of like, how did you get to that point? And I say to everyone, the best way to achieve your dreams is never stop doing. And like, look, I think when it comes to TCD, there's endless amounts, and I'm really excited to see that. I want to ask you one more question before we go to the last topic. What's your favorite FIFA song? What's one song that gets you G'd up for football?
That's a really good question.
I saw your face reaction. So that's how important football culture is.
Yeah, that's a massive question. The FIFA soundtrack is like a staple point of the culture. Really.
It is.
That's like everyone.
And it gives me goosebumps every time I think about the songs, you know?
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to about 2005 when I used to play FIFA as a kid. I used to remember playing career mode as a kid.
Yeah.
And it was actually the intro on a podcast I ran when I was 15, with some guys from Twitter who I'm still follow now and in talk.
I've got to find that podcast
now. Yeah, I wish it was still out there myself, because I've been talking to one of the guys that I did it with, and we wish we could listen to it again, because it was actually a decent podcast at the time on iTunes and stuff. But it was a really fun one to do. But yeah, that the one I'm probably going to go for is "Jerk It Out" by the Caesars.
That's the same thing. It's in my head too.
Yeah, that one.
That and The Whitest Boy Alive.
Yeah, so that one I'm going to go with. But I also like "Fit But You Know It" by the Streets. That was on the same game. That one, whenever I listen to that song, that takes me back to playing FIFA. So them two kind of actually whenever I listen to them, take us back to playing the game in 2005 when I was a kid. So that's probably my two favorites.
Good memories. Yeah, mine's
definitely.
Blur Song 2, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
FIFA 98.
Oh, yeah.
I remember putting the CD in there and just Paul Scholes rocking up in his face, and I'm like, yeah, let's go.
This is time. Yeah, definitely.
Well,
I feel the same. I think FIFA soundtracks, you still have that now. I think that this FIFA 21 soundtrack is a really good one as well.
Yeah, look, that's the best thing about what I like about FIFA versus Football Manager is that the branding behind it, they understand how to get into the football culture scene. I think EA Sports have done a really good job to inspire football fans in a music sense. They really do find that right song, whether it's South American, European, or even from the UK, and they really understand how to give that band a good sort of platform. Unfortunately, there has been some bad sort of choices in the past, but I think when it comes to EA Sports, they've sort of understood how to get the right song into the culture. Do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think EA Sports are good on that front. I think they're good on the kind of culture side, especially now. Like, I'm a big fan of this year's game in terms of the branding and in terms of culture, in terms of like the stuff they've introduced. I really, really am surprisingly a big fan of Volta as well. Since the introduction of that, I think that from a cultural standpoint is absolutely fantastic to see in a game. It's the street football, but it's also, they've got parking there. They've got No FC Football Cafe on there. They've got a few others. Romance FC, I think, are on there. Venice Beach, they're on there. And
they got a few. I'm trying to think of. But is it Isle of Man FC?
Maybe I'm trying to think of a few others, but I can't remember. They've got they've started taking notice. This is what I mean when I said before. People have started taking kind of notice of these brands that are doing it for years, but also that aspect, but also the kind of global aspect where you can play on different pitches in every corner of the world.
I love it.
You're playing against different people in the world, like across the world and stuff like that. And some of the pitches are really cool. Like, I'd love to play on them myself. When you see the ones in Brazil and in Tokyo and New York, and it's like, this is what football culture is, and it's good that FIFA are actually starting to take notice and create something that's good. One criticism of it is it's not long enough. I completed it within a week because the storyline wasn't long enough. So I was really wish they would do a kind of career where it's a bit like GTA but Volta.
Or even NBA. Yeah, I understand.
So NBA. So yeah, do you know what I mean? So it's got that storyline where it lasts for a long time, and you're just living as a Volta player. They did it with the journey. They did it with the journey, kind of. But I don't think that was long enough either. That was 3 FIFAs long, but each year it wasn't long enough in terms of the game lasting a full year.
Good old Alex Hunter.
Yeah, so that one got scrapped. But I think they need to do. There's definitely potential and scope for Volta to become even bigger than it is.
Yeah, I agree. And look, we'll make a promise now between each other that when the whole world settles down, we'll go to Japan and enjoy some of the Japanese culture, because when it comes to football, they do it really good.
Yeah, Japan's one of my favorite countries from both a not a football point of view and a football point of view. I love it. So
Don't even get me started on their football kits, man. Like the Japanese.
I'm yet to get any Japan football shirts, and I need to start actually getting some.
Kodak.
But they're very hard to get a hold of.
If you want, definitely. I'll set you up with one. All right.
Yeah. Sounds good.
All right, let's finish off this podcast. It's been amazing talking to you. And the one topic that you brought up in a podcast that I was listening on the drive home one day with the guys at now I'm having a blank. They're gonna kill me with AK and they're gonna kill me. Tagway, yes. Shuttlesworth, Derby Mag. And you said Pele is a fraud. And to everyone listening and watching, I'm on the same boat as you because man. This guy, like the second Maradona passed away, and again, I know how much you love Maradona. The second Maradona, the god, passed away. Pele decided to do something. Can you tell people why he did it after Ronaldo scored that certain goal?
Yeah, so Ronaldo scored the goal, and Santos came out and said that Pele scored
1,200.
1,200 goals, and they started counting, I think, training matches and friendlies and tour matches, which essentially don't really count towards anything. I don't know whenever goals have ever been counted for friendly matches.
And it's on his Instagram. It's on his fucking Instagram.
Yeah. So Messi beat his one club record for Santos, and that's when Santos started piping up saying no, he hasn't. And then Ronaldo broke his all-time record, and Santos was like, no, he hasn't. And then Pele changed his Instagram bio to say he scored 1,200. But most of them have been against opposition few divisions down friendlies, which don't count towards your overall record, never have. They've been in training matches, and half of them haven't been seen by anyone, so they've started recreating them. And some of the recreations are absolutely baffling how unrealistic they are. I'd probably go as far as saying some of them were offside as well, based on the rulings back then. Look, when I say he's a fraud, it's not taking away him being a good player, and him being one of the best. Like, he's won 3 World Cups, youngest to ever win a World Cup. Like, when you say he's a fraud, it's not saying that he's rubbish. He's still a living. Yeah, he is probably one of the best footballers to live, but he's not the best ever. And his goal tally record is fraudulent because it's not actually real. And then, so that's kind of where I stand on it, is that quite a lot of of the stuff that backs him up as to be one of the best ever is actually not true. And he seems to think it is and should be, but it's just not.
I can just imagine all the Pele fans being like, fuck you,
man.
Well,
on Derby Mags, they weren't kind of having any of it, but they kind of let me run with it. Just for, I think, politeness as I was a guest, but yeah, that's why.
But I agree with you. I just feel like the generation that he was in, there wasn't really much competition compared to what Maradona had. And even now with like Messi and the rulings, like, come on, like he's an amazing footballer, yes, and he's done amazing things for the community that he is. Like, he grew up through the situation that he was. But I just feel like he's just
yeah. I think he's put himself as best ever on like a pedestal and backed it up with false kind of stuff. I mean, I like him in terms of what he's done for football. Revolutionary in terms of what he did for Brazilian football.
Yeah.
I also think he was, when he was younger, when you see some of the photos, I also think he was a really cool guy. Really cool guy. When you see him at Cosmos and playing for Santos and wearing like the tracksuits for Brazil and stuff, he is a really cool guy. I just think the legacy is kind of trying to build himself and being 1,200 goals scored and this, that, and the other. I do think it's a bit fraudulent and doesn't deserve that title of being the best ever when I don't think he's top 5.
Yeah, the doco about him was really inspiring. I think there was a lot of unrest in the community in Brazil back then, and what he did for the community. And of course, like, coming from the background that he came from, like, he did bring that, football back to Brazil. But I just feel like Maradona, and this is one thing I had a conversation with a friend, and you love Maradona. He's like literally Lord and Savior. This is the last topic, and then I'll let you go, bud. I just feel like Maradona, honestly, for me, even though he had a bit of a naughty past with his obsession with certain substances that, it kind of changed his persona, but I feel like he inspired a lot of us in the game of football and the passion for football compared to Pele and our generation. I feel like us 90s and early 2000s kids just are much more connected to Maradona as an individual. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think what makes Maradona so interesting to me is he's that flawed character of his. is that he was this kind of the most flawed god you could probably have. Essentially, he had that human side, and I think that's what Pele kind of doesn't have. He's kind of tried to make himself a bit untouchable, whereas
Yeah,
Maradona had his flaws, and everyone could relate to him because everyone has their flaws and their kind of
that's true.
sins.
Pele
And I
tried
think,
running away from his problems.
yeah, and Maradona was just, obviously I didn't live through his time when he was playing, but looking back, he was just phenomenal, kind of on the ball and phenomenal off the ball, phenomenal with his teammates. Like,
Yeah.
and he essentially single-handedly won Argentina that World Cup. And he was just, what makes him one of my favorite players, probably my favorite player ever, is that fascinating side of the man himself. So he said himself, you've got one side is Diego and one side is Maradona, and Diego's the human side, and Maradona's the superstar that is partying with the Italian mafia and do you know what I mean? And,
The 60 children.
yeah, and all that sort of stuff. And then you've got Diego, the human side. It's that split that interests me, and I think he's probably the most fascinating character to ever play the game.
Is.
Whilst also being one of the best to ever play the game. I think Messi's a better footballer, but Maradona will always be my favourite because of that side.
Can you imagine if Messi turns into Maradona in the future, and then he comes out and says Lionel's one side, Messi's the other side, and Messi's the Messi side?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like with Messi though, he's probably the best footballer ever. Well, he is the best footballer ever in my eyes, in terms of talent and actual football ability. But his character is, because of the modern day football, his character is obviously
bland,
more reserved, bland. That's what
when he grew his beard and his hair like mine right now, I kind of fell in love with him.
Yeah, what interests me about Messi over Ronaldo is, yes, I think Messi's a better footballer, but also I think Messi's got the aura about him which he's proven recently, where he could actually, he's bigger than Barcelona and he can make the decisions.
If he moves, it'll make his character a lot more bigger, we've never seen him as a turmoil guy, like someone who has that anger in him,
Yeah, but I always think, we've never seen him do it, but I always, in my thoughts, always knew he had that aura about him where he could, with a flick of a button, change things if he wanted to, which we've seen. He threatened to leave Barcelona and the whole board resigned. And that's what makes him interesting, because he's got that kind of unknown aura about him where, how much power does Messi actually have in terms of football? I think he has a lot more than that people think and he gives off. I think he can kind of get away with what he wants and do what he wants because he's Messi, and that's what makes him interesting. He's got a bland character in terms of comparing him to Maradona, but if you're comparing him to modern day football, he's got that special aura about him, which I really find interesting.
Fast forward 2040, Messi is a cartel owner.
Yeah, he's got something about him where I'm interested.
Honestly, Diego is a god, and he's done so much for football and for people like yourself. Is there anything you want to finish off with the whole conversation of Diego and Pele, or do you want to end it at that? Do you feel confident? Well,
just to make sure people know that Diego's a lot better than Pele.
I agree with you.
We can leave it as that. I think people, if anyone's watching this that don't know my feelings on Maradona, then just kind of follow us on Twitter, and it's pretty much all I talk about is either Maradona or Football Manager, or that's pretty much it.
I was going to say, is Pele the Virgil Abloh of the scene?
Oh God, no! I give Pele more credit than that.
Honestly, if you're listening or watching this on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to check out Luke's TCD and everything he touches, because it does turn to gold. Sorry for the Midas touch pun in there, but honestly, when it comes to football, when it comes to community, there is literally, we're so far apart from, the UK to Australia, but I feel like we connect a lot every day. And if it wasn't for you, there's so much I wouldn't have been informed by. So keep doing what you're doing, dude. Keep inspiring. Yeah, keep talking about your Football Manager career, because I always look at what team you're signing for next. But honestly, if there's anything you want to plug before you leave, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, so I just want to say thanks for having us on, and thanks for all the kind words. It's been a pleasure. I love kind of doing these sort of things, and I just plug my socials and the coach division, but I want to plug this guy right here is the talking shirt stuff he's doing. The channel is really good. He's been grinding away for ages now, and it's really good to see, and it's some really good content. And actually, if I had to take it from a design point of view as well, some of my favorite aesthetics to come recently is from this channel, so definitely subscribe if you're not already.
I promise I didn't pay you. No, honestly, mate. keep doing what you're doing. I'm really excited to see. Hopefully, I see a collaboration between you and Park because I know how much you love Sam. And let's just do another episode in the future and see how 2021 has changed us as people, but also as creative people in the industry. Okay.
Yeah, definitely up for coming on. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna go watch the match of the game. Hopefully, United wins, and let's just say United's gonna win the league this year.
Oh God, I hope not.
All right, buddy. Enjoy your day. All right.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye.